let me ask you a question. What do Jackson Pollock, Andy Warhol, Henri Matisse, Pablo Picasso, Pascal Campion, Jean-Michel Basquiat, Matt Groening, Mark Rothko, Paul Gauguin, Vincent van Gogh, just to name a few, what do they all have in common? Now, this isn't a challenging quiz for an art channel. Most of you will probably recognize at least some, if not all of these names as being famous artists in their own way, be it in fine art, illustration, animation, and so on. Yes, that's true. However, there's something else that they have in common that I think is even more interesting. None of them were particularly celebrated for being great draftsmen. Meaning, none of them were particularly celebrated for their incredible drawing skills. Heck, in some cases, such as with Pablo Picasso, yes, he did have incredible drawing skills at a very young age, but for some reason, later on in his career, abandoned that technicality, abandoned that visually impressive draftsman skill in replacement for something that he felt obviously was far more valuable. And it's that aspect of his art that actually made him famous. If you look at any of the artists that I've mentioned on this list, all of them are celebrated, successful, today or in the past. Some of them have revolutionized, have changed the face of art forever. Some of them work in some of the most prestigious studios on some of the most impactful films and projects of all times, like in the case of Matt Groening, who is the creator of Simpsons, in case you couldn't place the name. All of them have done remarkable things and are celebrated and studied. And it's that reality that I want to highlight today, because I think discussing this, exploring this fact in your own art might be revolutionary. It might change your perspective on what it is that you prioritize at whatever phase in your artistic career you are in, so that you can discover your true strengths, your true artistic purpose. Because if you think that just being good at drawing is the only purpose for creating art, then you, my dear lady or gentleman, live a very sheltered life. Because art is far grander than that. It is far more diverse than that. And I want to celebrate diversity today. Before I do, however, I want to make a special announcement. On November 22nd, 2025, as of the date of this recording, I'm going to be hosting my second official workshop. This one is called Cinematic Lighting Mastery, bringing mood and depth to art. This is a subject that I completely adore. I love to teach, and you guys voted for it because I put out a poll on my YouTube channel, and this was one of the subjects that a large majority of you wanted to learn. One of the top picks. So this one's for you guys. If you want to join it, if you want to get more information, I'll leave all of the information in the description below. So let's start with Matt Groening. Matt Groening, as I mentioned earlier, was the creator of The Simpsons, the longest running sitcom of all time. One of the most celebrated, if not the most celebrated animated series of all time. If you look up The Simpsons on Google, if you watch an episode of The Simpsons, one might say, but Adam, the drawings look beautiful. They look gorgeous. I don't know what you're talking about. The colors, the composition, the character designs, the animation was exceptional. Yes, it was. After decades and decades of refinement, it was. But if you look at the original episode, look up episode 1. Look at the original drawings of The Simpsons by Matt Groening himself. And it won't take long for you to go, wow, those were but ugly drawings. Nothing compared to what they ended up being. However, if you put your artist lens on and you take off your idealism hat off, you just look at it for what it is and you analyze it for what it is, you'll notice something special about his drawings. Despite the fact that they're not aesthetically pretty, there's something very engaging about them. There's something very captivating about the way they were drawn. The line art, the colors, the designs, the character behind them, something about them made them really interesting. And that's the quality that took Matt time to learn and discover in his own artwork. I don't know the full history of Matt Groening. I didn't study him in depth, but one of the things I remember hearing about him was the fact that, back in school, back when he was studying art and animation, when he was growing artistically, he was never celebrated for his drawing skill. I don't know if he was told that he would never succeed as an artist. I don't know if that was a part of his legacy, but it wouldn't be surprising if that was something that he had to deal with, being somebody who wasn't technically strong at drawing. But there was something he was good at, and that was the fact that he was an incredible visual storyteller. When he told stories with his art, people really enjoyed his stuff. When he drew characters, despite the fact that they weren't pretty, they had a lot of character. In fact, maybe his lack of draftsman skill, his lack of refinement, worked to his benefit. Because if you combine this rough drawing style with this candid, rough storytelling style about subjects that have a little bit of edge to them, they're not clean-cut stories, then that combines together to create an incredible chemistry that can complement itself. There's a show I remember that was popular for a little while on MTV. You may or may not remember it, Beavis and Butthead. Crap drawings, deliberately shit-looking art. But when you mix that with the fact that these drawings were capturing the looks and personalities and the behavior and the immaturity of two pimple-faced teenagers who laughed at every poo-poo caca joke, it synergized perfectly. It just worked. In fact, if Beavis and Butthead, not that it was a show I was particularly fond of, although it was back in the days when I was a kid, I was in high school, I could relate to those drawings, and I could relate to a certain degree to that stupid sense of humor. I thought they were funny, and I loved the immaturity of it. If they were drawn beautifully, if they were beautifully designed and had nice refined lines and perfectly harmonious colors, it would have been a complete flop. And I'm sure if it continued to this day, I'm sure one of the challenges that the artists and animators would have had moving forward with that show was, how do we not refine it? How do we maintain the essence of these designs? It's easier said than done. You think it's easy to draw ugly? No. Sometimes that's the hardest part. Sometimes ugly is the recipe you want, and pretty can damage things. Over refining and over purifying things can really destroy its essence. This is one of the reasons why you look, for instance, at a lot of YouTubers, for instance. They start off with a crappy webcam and shitty audio and really close to nothing production value, no professional lighting whatsoever. Like Michael Stevens from Vsauce. Hey, Vsauce, Michael here. You look at him. His videos over the years have been nothing but him standing in front of a shitty webcam. Him standing in front of a shitty camera with absolutely nothing remarkable, basic boob on the ceiling lighting, sharing quirky facts. And there's something about the low production value and his passion for what it is he was teaching and his great fascinating mind and his amazing ability to teach that just kind of worked together to make him so approachable, to make him so relatable, to make him so enjoyable. And then I remember he participated, being such a hugely successful YouTuber, he participated in that whole YouTube Red thing when YouTube was experimenting with what it would be like to monetize their platform. And they had this whole YouTube, it ended up becoming YouTube Premium, which is basically a subscription. But back then they had these YouTube Red exclusive series. And one of those series was with Michael Stevens from Vsauce, where he hosted Minefield. All of a sudden, he had a professional mic, professional setting, a production team, professional audio, the whole bit. And he hosted these fascinating shows about different subjects, science subjects, as he does today. But something really utterly sucked about it. He became so, at least those episodes became so produced that they became insincere. They lost their essence, didn't they? I'm very happy to say that moving forward, Michael has he's rediscovered his true identity as a nerdy guy who loves to talk about fun shit in his own unique way. He's leaned heavily into his quirkiness. He's leaned heavily into his cheap point and shoot camera production. And he's still kicking it all these years later. He took a bit of a sabbatical, but now he's back to his original ways. And man, did it make me happy to see him start uploading those types of videos again. Here's another one. One of the most successful YouTubers of all time, PewDiePie. The most expensive thing that I've ever seen PewDiePie exhibit in his videos are his headphones. He's got a really nice pair of audiophile headphones. Apart from that, it's the most basic bitch setup he's ever used. I've even seen him to this day shooting videos sitting on the ground. Markiplier is another good example of that. He's not all about fancy editing, although his editing can be pretty awesome and funny, I might add. But it's about personality. It's about relatability. It's about sincerity. It's about a great sense of humor in his own quirky Felix way. He's just being himself. I think, in fact, the fact that he's just so good at maintaining his integrity as a person and not giving in to expensive production, that's why he's still a huge success. He was never trying to be anything big. He was just always very content being himself. And when T-Series and Mr. Beast flew by him in subs and he was no longer number one, it didn't stop him for 2 seconds. He just kept on keeping on. In fact, probably just gave him a more incentive to redirect his energy towards Marzia and his kid and just being a dad and growing up on camera with everybody else. A very relatable guy, still just as likable as he's always been. As an artist and as a teacher, I very often speak with artists, consult with artists who, at the beginning of the call, when we first sit down together, seem almost apologetic about the fact that their drawings, quote, could be better. There's always this sensitivity. There's this low-key shame and embarrassment that they aren't better at art. And it's interesting because I don't hear this shame. I don't see this embarrassment in beginner artists. I see this in more advanced artists. It's very interesting. You'd think that a beginner would be more self-conscious about the fact that their drawings suck. They're not, because they haven't reached a point where they have set any expectations for them to be better at it. They're at the early stages of their artistic career. They know nothing, and they're open books to learning. For the same reason that I didn't at least expect myself to be a great chess player. I'm still not a great chess player. I'm a very average one. But when I first started playing chess, I could lose 50 games in a row and I wouldn't give a shit. I didn't expect to be better. But then something happened. As I did start to get better, and as my rankings started to go up, and I crossed certain meaningful thresholds with my chess ranking, and I started to get up there, and I started to feel like I was making real progress, with that came a sense of excitement. I started to feel like, wow, I'm actually getting better. I'm actually really starting to get more competitive. I'm starting to be able to make more exciting moves and make more exciting discoveries and strategize better and see things I didn't before. This is really cool. Until I started to lose. Until I had a bad streak and my elo started going down. And what was particularly hurtful to me was when it took me so long, it took me hundreds and hundreds of games to get past a certain threshold, and I made it past that threshold and I maintained it, that when I went through this losing streak, crossing back below that threshold hurt. Interesting. If you look back, had I looked back 6 months prior to that, had I made it to that same point where I was at that point, I would have been excited. I would have been proud that holy shit, I made it that high. But once I made it past a certain rank and then I dropped below it, all of a sudden I went, oh, screw this. I don't want to go through this shit again. And I got tilted and I uninstalled the game and I didn't come back. And it took a while for me to come back because I was afraid to make it even worse. I was afraid to damage my ego even more. Beginner artists don't have that ego. They just create for the sake of creation. And if you teach them anything to a beginner artist is progress. So everything is exciting. But when you start to have these expectations of yourself, when you say, hey, I am capable of drawing something that good, it took you so long to get to that point that when you have bad days, like I did last week, where, I've been drawing for years, or in my case, decades, and then you look at your art and you go, Jesus, those drawings look like... I did drawings 20 years ago that look better than this. That my ego can get in the way and make me feel like shit about myself. This feeling of regression. And what's toxic about that feeling when you have it, I'm sure it's happened to you a million times, as it has with me, happened to me last week. The toxic thing about that experience is that hit to your ego pushes your mind into the state that your progress, that your success is fickle and it's losable. And I went through this cycle with my own art many, many times where I every time I felt like I was making any progress, I would go online, I would look on social media, I'd go on Instagram or DeviantArt or Google or ArtStation, any of these popular social media platforms where a lot of artists post their stuff, the popularity contest, right? The cool kid club. And I would see it, I would be feeling good about what I did until I saw somebody do it a whole lot better than me. And I go, fuck, man. And I'd realize just how little progress I'd made when you look at the big picture of things. And it was hard to face. It was hard to address that reality because I worked so hard and because I cared so much. But something changed throughout my career. I made certain realizations about me as an artist. I had to come to terms with certain realities about my art that I feel put me into a much healthier mindset and really helped me find growth and find my voice and find my path. And furthermore, whenever I did, inevitably, eventually get knocked off that path, I could get myself back on it very quickly. And you know one of the most important things I ever learned? And it's one of the things that I want you to be very honest with yourself about. As people, as artists, as creators, as somebody who shares yourself with other people. Because that's what art is. It's an act of sharing. It's an act of communication. I want you to recognize your strengths, especially for somebody who's been doing it a little bit longer. If you're newer to it, you might not have any strength whatsoever. You might just flat out suck, but you want to learn art. But ignorance is bliss, so you're fine. You'll be okay. But if you've made a little bit more progress, you've been recognized for it, and you find yourself at this very awkward, I call it the awkward teens of artistic growth, where you don't know where you're from and where the hell you're going. You just grew into this body that you haven't quite filled yet, so to speak. That you take a good look at yourself and you say, hey, what am I good at? What am I good at? Well, I'm good at visual storytelling. I'm good at making people laugh. I have a natural sense of color. My line art is very expressive. I love texture painting and texture brushes. I'm really good at recreating reality. I'm really good at capturing personality and portraits. Just recognize something about you. And when you look at your own art, there was a certain period in my art where I just had to say, hey, Adam, stop trying to be something you're not. Embrace the things you're strong at. You've put many years of work and practice and training into that. And even though you might have a functional knowledge of a lot of different things, what are you truly, truly great at? And what do you truly love about your art? What is it about your art that just, it feels like a safe spot. It feels like a place of fluid expression. It just feels right to me. And that's when I started to discover, yeah, sure, I have an animation background. And yeah, sure, I've done environment art and I was a background supervisor for TV shows. And, I've worked in video games and I do know how to do 3D and yada, 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 yada. I don't honestly give a fuck about most of that stuff, and I could never call myself particularly gifted at any of the above. I was extremely average, if not worse. But creatures, sculpting, lighting, anatomy, texture, that kind of stuff, the expressive use of form, that's just something that just clicks in my brain. I consider that kind of like my home base, my safe spot. And you can't take that for granted. I think one of the most important pieces of advice I got, and it was art advice on top of it, was don't take for granted the things that come naturally to you. We very often as artists tend to overvalue things that we think are technically strong achievements. Just because something comes easy to you doesn't mean it doesn't have value. Doesn't mean it's effortless. It means maybe you're just being genuine. Maybe you're just being true to yourself. And when I made that discovery about myself, it transformed not only the type of art that I produced, it transformed my focus, my priorities, my energies, my training, my expressiveness, the people I hung out with, the artists that I studied. I became far more focused as an artist. I didn't find that focus by getting good. I found that focus by being honest with myself, and by, like I mentioned in my last Painter's Hollow, making a commitment to myself. I didn't do creature designs. I am a creature designer. It is my identity. When people look up creature design online, I might very well pop up. In fact, one of the things that makes me, that fills me with a little bit of self-satisfaction and joy as an artist? I spend a lot of time on Pinterest. And if I can go off on a little bit of a side note, Pinterest, thank you for taking care of that, at least trying to address that AI problem. I appreciate that. The fact that you can disable AI generated searches, I think that's pretty fantastic. I clicked that button as quick as possible. So when I go on Pinterest, which is still to this day my favorite researching tool and discovery tool, my searches are extremely consistent. The type of art that I look up, the type of imagery that I look up is very consistent because I want to maintain that consistency in my own art, in my own style. And at least once a day, when I'm researching, there'll be some post by some Russian user or some Yugoslavian user or some Italian user or some American user who posted one of my pieces. I find it incredibly reaffirming and encouraging that when I look up art, Pinterest recommends me to myself. I like that because that means that reaffirms that I have a strong sense of identity, that I've made a commitment to myself and I'm adhering to it. I am capable of doing a lot of different types of things with time and effort, But I don't waste my time with that because it's much more important for me to stay true to myself. And that being true to myself doesn't mean I have to be the best at what I do. It just means that I'm in a place where I feel I belong, emotionally and artistically, that I feel I'm with my people, and I am communicating an art to a demographic that have a like-minded taste artistically. And when Pinterest recommends me to myself, it means that my research has come full circle, that my art is a reflection of those whom I study and I adore and I celebrate, and that I'm a part of that. When I hosted my workshop recently, my visual storytelling and composition masterclass, I spent well over an hour researching and decoding and celebrating and analyzing the works of Pascal Campion, who's one of the artists we looked at quite a bit. There's a lot to learn from Pascal's work. When you look at Pascal's paintings, if you look it up right now, I don't think anybody can disagree that his work is captivating, it's beautiful, it's moody, it's nostalgic, it's evocative. He's really good. He's really, really good. I really just feel great when I look at his work. I feel like I'm looking at something magnificent. But I can also say, if I objectively look at those drawings, they're not the strongest drawings I've ever seen. But what's really interesting about that is that I really don't give a shit. I really don't care. Because I don't think that anatomical accuracy or, perfectly impeccable lines and colors and shapes would contribute in a positive way to what it is he expresses. In fact, the very fact that he doesn't do that allows me to not prioritize that and allows me to appreciate the things he is particularly strong at. Light, composition, visual storytelling, color, gesture, relationships, atmosphere, set design. By plucking out this stick in the spokes of his production, of his artistic creations, which would be the ego's desire to draw pretty pictures. By letting go of his ego, self-admittedly, I might add, he said this about his own work, he unplugged all of the other things about his work that made him masterful, and the things that just keep getting better every single day. I'm one of those guys who drops everything to look and like his posts. I love his work. Every time, it's just a treat to see what he draws. I challenge you to go online, go on Pinterest, go on Instagram, go on your favorite image site, and research your favorite artists. And when you first look at them, there's a good chance that you'll look at it and you'll go, wow, they're so good. Jesus, they're good. But once you get over the novelty of that moment, that fangirl or fanboy moment that you have, I want you to do something that you probably haven't done yet. I want you to imagine being them. That those drawings, those paintings, those illustrations, those bits of concept art, film art that you're looking at were done by you. You own that art. You produced that art. That art came out of you. And you might realize something quite profound. You might realize that when you look at their great art through your mind, when you add ownership to that piece, all of a sudden you almost instantly become conscious of the things that those artworks are not. It doesn't matter how good they are. That you just look at their work, you look at that work and say, I don't do enough of this. I realize there's not a lot of that there. I realize I'm avoiding drawing this. I realize that, yeah, I might be really good at doing that thing, but there's a lot of other things I don't do. There's a lot of other things I've never seen myself draw. In fact, chances are I probably can't draw those things at all. You almost immediately become aware of quote unquote your shortcomings as an artist. When only seconds ago you were looking at them being completely starry-eyed at their amazing skill, all of a sudden when it's you who's produced it, you become extremely aware of what's lacking, what's missing. Isn't that interesting? And what that might give you a little bit of insight into is your future self. That all of these artists that you look at and you completely lose your mind over because they're so incredible, that when it's you doing it, your past successes become irrelevant, and it's all about your next success. It's all about your growth. It's all about having a sense of acceptance for the things you are, but also the things you're not. It's an all-encompassing opinion. It's not just, geez, look how pretty that looks. Because now everything you do matters to you. And in order for them to have gotten that great at what they do, you might realize that they also had to abandon the things that they weren't. They had to embrace their weaknesses. They had to, at a certain point, say, I know what I am and I know what I'm not. And lean into what they are. If I backpedaled 15 years in my career, and somebody turned to me and said, hey, Adam, we're looking for somebody. It's full-time work. Here's the contract. We'll pay you 3/4 up front. It pays extremely well. Very prestigious company. You're going to have a lot of colleagues, and we're working on really, really exciting projects. This is like career building stuff. Back in the day, I would have gone, hell yeah, sign me up. I'll do whatever you want. But if you ask me that same question today, I wouldn't be so quick to accept that. If somebody says, hey, Adam, we're paying $150,000 per hour for this work, and it's guaranteed work. Here's the contract. We have 6 lawyers who will confirm this contract is legally binding. We can start today. I wouldn't say yes. I would start by asking, what are you looking for? And if they answered something along the lines of, oh, well, we're looking for somebody to do environment art, video game environment designs and stuff like that. 15 years ago, I would have said, I can manage that. And maybe to some degree I could, because I did have a functional knowledge of art. Today, I would say, oh, cool. Here's my friend Tyler Edlin's number. Give him a call. He'll hook you up real good. He's amazing. I wouldn't take the job. I would give it to somebody who I felt was more qualified. Now, of course, if they asked me to do character creature designs for a horror game, or, yeah, we're looking for an artist to work on Guillermo del Toro's next film, I'd say, hell yeah, here's my firstborn as collateral, let's go. I would jump on that right away. I commit myself to projects where I feel a sense of ownership and belonging. Back in the day, I would have taken anything, just because I felt moderately competent to pursue it. But I realized the long-term cost of doing that wasn't worth it, because it derailed me. It pushed me, it distanced me from what I felt I was particularly proficient at. It was forcing me to pretend to be something I wasn't, temporarily, for a temporary satisfaction of a temporary paycheck that was going to end up being spent on bills. Nowadays, building my career and staying true to the type of art that means something to me, where I feel it has lasting value, something I'm proud to put on my portfolio and proud to get called for, has far more value now than ever. I want a sufficient salary. I want to be able to, take care of myself and support my kids and pay my bills, absolutely. But beyond that, I don't need a penny more. What I do truly need is to have a sense of belonging to the type of art that I produce. I want to feel like this is my art and I'm working on a project that matters to me. And if you look at all of your favorite artists out there, all of them, you're going to notice something very surprising, something you might not have noticed before. First of all, most of them could be categorized as, quote, one-trick ponies. Artists that draw the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. Look at Anthony Jones, look at Loish, look at Brahm, look at Bobby Chu, look at all these guys whose names I drop almost all the time. People who are low-hanging fruit in terms of success because everybody knows them. They're YouTubers, they're celebrities, they're public figures. Look at their work objectively. Loish draws beautiful, colorful women with aesthetic backgrounds all the time. jellyfish, mushrooms, flowers, etc. Beautiful dynamic poses, beautiful color. Sure, she diversifies. She does other stuff every now and then, but you know what she does. You know what she's good at. Same thing with Bobby Choe, these dark, whimsical, adorable, quirky creature designs with beautiful feathered brushstrokes and a little bit of a dark sense of humor twisted in with this. Or Anthony Jones with his comic book / horror fantasy value painted sculpted creature designs, very similar to what I draw. This is why I relate to him so much. You know what they do. They're not trying to be a jack of all trades. They're very good at what they do. But in order for them to be very good at what they do, they had to accept the things that they don't do, the things that they're not particularly proficient at. Some people like to have fun and experiment and use different tools and tinker around with different things. Good on them. That's great, as do I. I love to learn new shit. But I always know what my foundation is. And I never pursue anything artistic that I feel will damage my sense of integrity, that will damage my sense of identity. And nor should you, in my personal opinion. So, if it's your goal to make a name for yourself, if it's a goal to get great at what you do, if it's your goal and your desire to be recognized for being something, for having a unique voice, for having a unique style, having a unique form of self-expression, having something special that people recognize you for, it requires a lot more than just exploring and training and nurturing your skills and your qualities. It's also about recognizing those things that you are not, so long as you try to be the best of everything. You're going to end up being the best of nothing. So long as you try to pretend to be something you're not, you're never truly going to be your most beautiful self. I produced a video years ago where I shared some of my favorite role models, some of my top role models, people who ranked very high in terms of positive influence on my life and perspective on life in general. Really helped me look at myself and analyze myself through a much richer lens, so to speak. And one that ranked very high on that list, if not the top of the list, was Abigail Thorne from the YouTube channel PhilosophyTube. Somebody who was remarkable already. Somebody who for many years was a celebrated teacher and YouTuber and public figure and philosopher and thinker and personality. But she made a change in her life that took her from being great to being exceptional. That took her from being somebody who had amassed a decent following and was respected in her community to being somebody who is now celebrated worldwide. Somebody who is a role model to millions of people around the world. It's when she, both personally, in her own life, and then eventually publicly, stopped trying to be something she wasn't. A man. She'd spent most of her life trying her best to be a man, trying her best to grow the beard and don the voice and the clothes and the body and the haircut and the personality of a man. And little did anybody know that when she bid adieu to her audience, she, being the very theatrical person that she is, made a video of her coming out, at least publicly, because she had come out to her close friends and family long before that. But she produced a video where she bowed goodbye as her last performance as a man and faded away. And then the door opens and she walks back in the door, her true self, a woman, a beautiful woman, I might add as well. She walks out on stage and she presents to her audience her true self. Little did anybody know just how much she had been holding back. Despite how good enough she was as a man, she was exceptional as a woman, because she could be her true self. She could be her full self. She could express herself with the voice that made most sense. But in order to become that, she had to let go of the things she tried desperately to be, but knew she wasn't. May that serve you as a very good example of what you might be holding back by trying to be something you're not. By trying to be the, quote, pretty artist. By trying to be the technically strong artist. Unless that is the beauty of what you do. If that is your skill, if beauty and technicality is your skill, then by all means, celebrate it. Be awesome. Go for it. But you have to be able to step back, analyze yourself from the outside and say, is this where my true potential lies? Because you might be so hyper-focused on being the thing that you can be, you are neglecting the thing that you should be. I believe when I look at myself and who I am, my ego, my desires, my strengths, my weaknesses, my history, all of the things that make me who I am. If I look back at my younger self, I was always preoccupied with the things that I wasn't good enough at. All of those things that other people did better than me. Fast forward to 49 years old, and in only a matter of in a week, I'm going to be turning 50. I'm going to be half a century old. Holy shit. I look at my almost to be 50-year-old self, and I think the things that I'm the most proud of is the fact that I made that discovery of my true voice. I embraced who I was. I stopped trying to be the things I wasn't. And I actually made a second discovery. When I started to discover who I was, I also discovered something else, an unexpected benefit and experience that I didn't even see coming. Discovering who I was, which is of course always a work in progress, but embracing who I was as an artist, embracing my strengths, embracing my weaknesses, also, for the first time in my life, allowed me to truly appreciate others as well. Because if you think about it, when you're not quite sure who you are, when you're running around searching for a sense of identity, when you are overwhelmed and discouraged by the greatness of others, when there is an artist you do love, the Michael Kuchas, the Piotr Jabłonskis, the Guizes, etc., you express appreciation for the beautiful work that they do. But that appreciation is tainted with envy, jealousy, and desire. You want to be that. You want what they have. You want to have that identity. You want to have that mastery in your work. So you can't truly appreciate the work of others because it's a reflection of your own shortcomings and desires. But the minute I abandoned my need to be the best and I just found my own voice, found my own identity, I no longer seeked a sense of purpose and meaning outside of myself. I wasn't trying to be the best. I was just trying to be true. I was trying to be honest. I was trying to feel that sense of belonging. And it wasn't until then that I could truly look at the works of my friends Tyler and Hardy Fowler and Istabrack and Kelsey Rodriguez and all of these amazing artists and truly appreciate them for just being masterful at what they did. Because I wasn't trying to be them anymore. I wasn't trying to be anybody. I was just trying to be myself. And if and when I looked at and studied and practiced the work of artists whom I did relate to, the ones I learned from, the ones I study, like the Scott Flanders, the Anthony Joneses, the ones who have an incredible masterful skill, I truly appreciate what they do, because it's not about jealousy, it's not about desire, it's not about envy. I'm not trying to be Anthony Jones. I'm not trying to be Scott Flanders. I don't want to be the next shape carver. I don't want to. They are just people who have an ingredient, a magic ingredient to what it is that they produce that makes their artwork incredibly unique. I don't envy that ingredient. I don't. I just say that's the uniqueness in their unique brand of what they do that makes them distinguishable from who I am. I allow myself to go in my direction, and when Scott goes in his, and when Anthony goes in his, and they do something that I don't think I'll ever be able to do, I don't look at it and go, I'm going to suck forever, and they're just so much better than me. No. I learn from them that which I can. I study their work. I buy their gumroads. I watch their tutorials. I grow and I improve as a result of their amazing teachings. But then I take it off in my own direction. And when Anthony does his masterpieces that just fly out of his head like it ain't nothing, I look at it and I go, Jesus Christ, he's incredible. He's fucking incredible. How does he do that? I don't know. And it's because of that I don't know that I don't try. I know that's something that he'll always have, that's magic, and instead of trying to be jealous of that, that's when I step back and I go, no, don't let your ego get you, Adam. Just celebrate him. Appreciate him for what he does. Appreciate him for what he does. Don't try to be that. If there's something you can relate to and you can learn from, do it. You've got a lot to learn from these guys. They're amazing at what they do. But stop there. Anything beyond that point is up to me. It's about my own form of self-expression. Take that which you can and celebrate the rest. And being able to truly appreciate others for who they are without walking back and looking back at your own work and feeling bad about yourself is a very important place to find yourself. I would say that this is an aspiration you should have. It's a goal you should try to cultivate. Having that sense of identity doesn't only open you up to yourself, but it also opens you up to everybody else. I mean that. Okay? And with that said, enjoy the rest of this beautiful song. And of course, I love you all with all my heart. Thank you for joining me today, and happy painting. Take care.